It is the only film in cinematic history, and likely the last one ever, that blends Lovecraftian themes with science fiction, mystery, detective work, thriller, adventure, disaster, drama, and even psychological chamber-style erotica. It's also a high-concept sci-fi masterpiece that you simply won't find a genre match for anywhere else. This is Annihilation, a bizarre film that fuses countless cinematic elements into one, yet remarkably without ever feeling disjointed. It's also, hands down, the most mind-bending movie I've ever reviewed. To even begin to explain this film, I had to cram a fair amount of biology, physics, and psychology. So what is the ultimate form of life's evolution? Perhaps this film has an answer for you. Whether you've seen the film or not, or watched dozens of reviews already, today you'll get a brand new experience. One that not only helps you truly understand the movie, but also feel the brilliance it holds. One day, an unidentified object from deep space crashes into a lighthouse on the southern coast of the United States. The object is grotesque and distorted in shape, and it begins to engulf the lighthouse entirely before expanding outward in an irregular dome-like form. In just 3 years, the surrounding land is completely swallowed up. From the outside, it sparkles with vibrant colors, so scientists name it the Shimmer. During that time, the authorities send in team after team to investigate, but no one ever returns. And yet, the female lead Lena walked out of the Shimmer completely unharmed. Even stranger, her 5-person team only carried 2 weeks' worth of supplies, but Lena was in there for over 4 months before coming back. When asked, Lena replied, "I don't remember eating." She doesn't even know how long she was inside. Her impression is that it was just a few days, and of the 4 teammates who entered with her, only 2 were confirmed dead. The rest, she couldn't explain. The entire film unfolds through Lena's recollections and personal account of what happened. Lena is a university biology professor, and her husband, Kane, is a military sergeant. A year ago, he left on a secret mission and never returned. Lena thought Kane was dead and spent her days drowning in grief. But just as she was starting to move on, Kane suddenly returned without warning. The moment she saw him, Lena couldn't believe her eyes. She ran to him and kissed him. But after calming down, she noticed something was off. Kane looked vacant, and he had no answers to any of her questions. Lena assumed Kane had suffered trauma and gently tried to comfort him. But as soon as he took a sip of water, the glass turned red with blood.
"I don't feel very well."
Terrified, Lena called for an ambulance. On the way to the hospital, Kane kept vomiting blood, and the doctors had no idea what was happening. At that moment, a convoy of black vehicles suddenly appeared and forcibly stopped the ambulance. Heavily armed soldiers dragged Kane off the stretcher, and even Lena was knocked unconscious after being injected with a sedative. When she awoke, Lena found herself in an unfamiliar room. A woman who introduced herself as Dr. Ventris, a psychologist, came to see her, but it felt less like a greeting and more like an interrogation. Ventris was clearly digging for information about Kane's return. It was obvious they were just as shocked by his reappearance. Naturally, Lena didn't know much, so she asked about Kane's current condition. Ventris said Kane was experiencing multiple organ failure and heavy internal bleeding. As a biologist, Lena suspected it could be radiation exposure or a viral infection, and asked to know what Kane had experienced over the past year, hoping she might help. But Ventris didn't answer, instead leading Lena to the base's observation deck. Across from them, the forest was shrouded in dazzling, multicolored light, and along the edges, it seemed as if an invisible barrier separated the glowing zone from the outside world. Ventris explained that since the Shimmer engulfed the lighthouse 3 years ago, a lighthouse keeper mysteriously disappeared inside. After that, the government covered it up and evacuated nearby residents, citing a chemical leak. Then, professional teams were sent in to investigate. But no matter whether they entered by land or by water, or sent in drones, animals, or human squads, none of them ever came back. Kane was the only one who miraculously returned, though he was barely alive. Even now, the Shimmer continues expanding. If it reaches a populated area, the consequences could be catastrophic. So Ventris decided she would lead a new team into the Shimmer herself in a few days. Lena was shocked. Ventris was the base commander and a leading psychologist. Why would she recklessly join what's essentially a suicide mission? Lena suspected there was more to the story. Ventris, realizing she couldn't hide it, casually admitted that she just wanted to see what was inside the lighthouse with her own eyes. Surprisingly, Lena volunteered to join as well. She wanted to find the cause of Kane's condition and come back to save him. The team happened to be missing a biologist, and with Lena's 7 years of army service, Ventris readily agreed. But the investigator found this hard to believe. How could someone who is both highly educated and just an ordinary civilian suddenly volunteer for such a dangerous mission just for a dying man?
I owed him, so I went in.
As it turns out, before Kane went into the Shimmer, he and Lena had been growing distant for years. During that time, Lena had gotten close with a colleague named Daniel. Kane might have found out a year ago. The day before his mission, he suddenly told Lena he was leaving early, his face full of anger and quiet finality. So when Lena realized all of this, she suspected Kane had discovered the affair and chose this suicide mission because he couldn't bear it. Otherwise, Kane would never have done something so reckless. Haunted by guilt, Lena made up her mind to risk everything. Soon, the departure day came. The 5 of them, fully geared, arrived at the edge of the Shimmer. Alongside Lena and Ventress were Cassie the geologist, Josie the physicist, and Anya the paramedic. None of them knew Lena's connection to Kane. Lena had made prior arrangements with Ventress to keep that private. As for why, Lena didn't say. The scene then shifts. Lena wakes up inside a tent. As she steps outside, her face is filled with confusion because she has no memory of ever coming here, nor of setting up camp to rest. All her memories since entering the Shimmer have vanished. The rest of the team is in the same situation. They don't even know how many days they've been inside. Cassie estimates, based on their food consumption, that they've been in the Shimmer for at least 3 to 4 days. At the same time, Josie notices something strange. Their communication devices are fully functional, yet they can't transmit any signal outside the Shimmer. Even the compass has stopped working. Thankfully, they have a geologist on the team. Cassie explains that by pointing the hour hand of a watch at the sun, the midpoint between the hour hand and 12 o'clock shows true south. So as long as they reach the coast and follow the beach, they'll eventually find the lighthouse. With time running out, the group immediately sets off. Before long, they find an abandoned boathouse. They're hoping to find useful supplies, but instead, Lena notices something strange in the garden. All the plants appear to be the same species with identical branching structures, yet each looks completely different. It's like a rose suddenly grew a petal from a tulip, completely illogical by known genetic mutation patterns. As Lena ponders this anomaly, Josie steps out from the cabin. But in the next second, Lena reacts first, shouting as she charges into the boathouse. In the water, something appears to be pulling Josie under. Luckily, the flooded floor isn't deep, and with everyone's help, they manage to rescue Josie and move her away from the structure. But the danger is far from over. The door of the cabin suddenly bursts open with a loud crash. To their horror, a 5-meter-long white-spotted alligator crawls out, swimming toward them through the river. Without hesitation, Anya raises her rifle and starts shooting, but her aim leaves much to be desired. In a critical moment, Lena steps up to draw the gator's attention. Thanks to her years of military training, she takes it down effortlessly with precise shots. But what shocks her is that this alligator has mutated. It has a mouth full of shark-like teeth. Everyone knows it's biologically impossible for different species to interbreed, so Lena suspects something inside the Shimmer is disturbing the genetic structure here. Unbeknownst to her, this is only the mildest mutation they'll encounter. They then continued their journey by water. Along the way, Lena suddenly feels a sharp pain in her left arm. She assumes it's a scratch from rescuing Josie and brushes it off. Eventually, they reach an old research base that was once used to study the Shimmer. The facility is run down, but still holds remnants of human activity. Dusty heavy machine guns on the ground and a duty roster on the wall suggest that the military team from last year lived here. And written on the board is Kane's name. Lena is overwhelmed, but she hides her reaction to avoid raising suspicion among the others. At that moment, Ventress finds a bag on the table labeled, "For the next team." Inside was a memory card, and when they played it, they found footage recorded by the soldiers, led by Kane himself, which made Lena's heart race, unsure of what was about to unfold. In the footage, Kane drives a knife into a teammate's abdomen and begins cutting to the side. Under normal circumstances, the pain would be unbearable, but the soldier barely flinches, only gasping heavily, with no signs of struggle. As Kane slices open the abdomen, the others are stunned to see the man's intestines writhing as if they're alive. Even more disturbingly, Kane smiles slightly at the sight, then calmly washes the blood from his hands in a pool of water. The group is both horrified and skeptical about the video's authenticity. Ventress says nothing and walks deeper into the base. The other 4 follow her to the same pool from the video. There, the soldier who was cut open now appears completely deformed, his legs still in a seated position, but his upper body fused to the wall like a grotesque specimen. A knife at the bottom of the pool confirms the footage was real. By all logic, they should have left immediately. But with nightfall approaching and nowhere else to go, the group has no choice but to let Lena collect some samples before taking refuge in the observation tower above. And this would soon become the decision they regret the most. Later that night, Lena is restless after dreaming about Kane. Unable to sleep, she decides to analyze the samples and is shocked to find that the dead soldier's cells are still alive, not only dividing rapidly but showing strange mutations. The proportion of human DNA is extremely low. In many ways, the body no longer even qualifies as human. This discovery shatters Lena's understanding of biology. After hours of fruitless thought, she decides to go relieve Ventress for guard duty. But it's not just about standing watch. Ventress knows Lena has another motive.
You didn't tell the team about your connection to Kane. I wasn't sure if that was a good idea. But after seeing that footage, yeah.
Since Kane is the only person to return from the Shimmer, his experience must have been vastly different from others. Lena hides her relationship with Kane partly to avoid risk. For example, when that video appeared, if the others had known about Lena and Kane's relationship, there's a good chance Lena would have been labeled as the madman's wife. Best case, she'd face distrust. Worst case, anything could happen. In extreme conditions like this, people are capable of anything, especially in life or death situations. Lena says nothing in response. Instead, she asks Ventress why Kane would volunteer for a suicide mission, since the military always performs psychological evaluations beforehand. Ventress replies that, from a psychologist's perspective, almost no one actually wants to die. What they seek is self-destruction. Every person carries a self-destruct code in their cells, whether it's smoking, drinking, sabotaging a good job or a happy marriage, or engaging in harmful behaviors after emotional trauma. Suicide, she explains, is simply the most extreme form of self-destruction. Lena never seriously considered this hypothesis before, but Ventress's veiled comments make her suspect that Ventress already knows about her affair. So Kane's reason for joining the mission was exactly what Lena had feared all along.
What was that?
Don't know.
Meanwhile, Cassie wakes up in a panic. She grabs a weapon and rushes to the guard post. At the same time, Lena notices on the night vision monitor that the perimeter fence has been torn open. This wasn't the work of any ordinary animal, and the team immediately goes on high alert. The next second,
Shimmer! What's going on? Shimmer was just next to me and something took her.
they muster their courage and rush forward to help, but the pitch-black surroundings and unfamiliar terrain force them to abandon the attempt. Little do they know, this is only the beginning. By the next day, after witnessing Cassie's horrific fate and remembering the disturbing footage, Anya and Josie refuse to continue. They want to escape the Shimmer with the information they've gathered, but Ventress isn't fazed. She believes the data is nowhere near enough to explain the Shimmer's mystery and insists on pressing forward to the lighthouse. Of course, she won't stop anyone who wants to leave, and with that, Ventress grabs her pack and heads off alone. Seeing that Ventress didn't care at all about her teammate's death, Josie was completely disheartened. Anya began cursing outright and even voiced her frustration at Lena's silence. Lena hadn't found the cause of Kane's condition, so of course she wasn't ready to leave, but refusing to go back outright would seem suspicious. So she claimed they had already been walking for 6 days and were now less than 2 days from the lighthouse. Turning back might expose them to more danger in the forest, so it would be safer to move forward, reach the lighthouse, and then follow the wide-open coastline back. But Anya and Josie clearly weren't so easily convinced.
This isn't some bullshit tactic to get us to the lighthouse, is it?
This is not about the lighthouse, okay? I believe that the coast is the best route out.
After much hesitation, Anya decided to trust Lena. After all, without Lena's protection, given their poor marksmanship, they likely wouldn't make it out alive. The 4 of them set off again. Along the way, they stumbled upon Cassie's shoe. With her battlefield experience, Lena suspected Cassie might still be alive and decided to follow the trail to search for her. Anya wanted to go too, but Lena worried it might be dangerous and didn't agree. Anya's face instantly darkened. Following the trail alone, Lena eventually spotted a white deer with branches growing from its head in the forest. In the blink of an eye, the deer split in two, creating a duplicate with identical appearance and movement. Seeing this, Lena seemed to realize something. Without lingering, she pressed on, eventually finding Cassie's corpse by a large tree. Judging by the damage, the creature hadn't eaten Cassie, just ripped open her throat. Lena couldn't bear to look and went back to inform the others. Next, they arrived at an abandoned village. There, they found several human-shaped plants, which left Lena baffled. How could plants possibly grow like this? They didn't just resemble human figures, their branching structure was exactly like a person's, with arms, legs, a torso, and even a head. After a closer look, Josie suddenly had a revelation. She had initially thought the Shimmer was blocking radio signals, which was why they couldn't communicate with the outside. But that didn't add up because light wasn't being blocked, and they could still receive signals. So, the real reason was likely that the Shimmer was refracting the signal. Satellites couldn't pick up their location, but they could still receive satellite signals. If this concept was applied to the plants, everything made sense. These humanoid plants likely carried human, homologous morphological genes. That is, genes that control biological shape and physical structure, ensuring you have a human form, that your nose doesn't grow above your eyes, and that you're not missing limbs. So Josie suspected the phenomenon wasn't caused by simple mutations, but something like signal refraction. If you imagined the Shimmer as a prism, it refracted all matter inside, including biological DNA. This would explain the genetic chaos in the Shimmer. It wasn't random mutation, like the alligator with shark teeth or the deer with branches on its head or the wildly vibrant plants. Why weren't there more bizarre monsters? Because within the Shimmer's range, those kinds of genetic templates didn't exist, so such creatures couldn't be formed. Some viewers might feel confused at this point. That's because you haven't yet grasped the true nature of the Shimmer. It's not a dome, but countless DNA molecules scattered throughout. Not spiral-shaped, but prism-like. When sunlight passes through these DNA molecules, it forms rainbow-colored light. This is evident from the rainbow-colored light formed when sunlight passes through the trees. In the concept of the Shimmer, animals are not just animals, and plants are not just plants, but masses of cells forming life forms. Within those cells, DNA fragments become exposed. The Shimmer attaches to your cells, refracts your DNA outward, and transmits it to other life forms, causing genetic mutation. Of course, your own DNA can also be invaded by foreign genes. Whether or not this process involves intelligence or conscious control, whether the Shimmer is sentient, we'll soon find out. As night approached, they chose to rest in a 2-story building. But just then, Anya suddenly noticed that her palm lines were moving. Terrified, she quickly hid her hand, but Lena still caught a glimpse. Their eyes locked, and Anya's were filled with murderous intent. Late at night, when the others had fallen asleep, Lena quietly pulled out her equipment and extracted a drop of her own blood. Sure enough, her cells were dividing at an accelerated rate, and the newly formed ones were almost entirely occupied by the Shimmer. The cytoplasm shimmered with colors under the light, sending chills down Lena's spine. No one knew what it meant. As Lena fell back asleep, she once again dreamed of Kane, only to wake up with Anya pointing a gun at her head. When she came to, she found that all 3 of them had been tied tightly to chairs. Anya held the necklace she had taken from Lena's neck, the one with Kane's photo, and questioned her, asking why she had hidden their relationship and why Ventress was helping her. There had to be some dark secret between them. She even accused Lena and Ventress of killing Cassie, because last night she never saw a monster and Lena had insisted on searching alone. But in truth, Anya didn't care how Cassie died. She was terrified because her body now felt like that soldier in the video, as if her organs were shifting inside her. She feared Lena might do what Kane had done, cut her open.
If I let you go, and you tied me to a chair and cut me open, I'm not the one tied to a chair.
Anya decided to strike first, but just as she was about to act, Cassie's voice suddenly cried out from outside.
You said she was dead.
A monstrous roar froze them all in place. A massive black bear slowly approached, its form grotesque, with the skin peeled off its upper jaw and the bone exposed to the air. Fortunately, it still retained bear-like instincts, preferring to attack moving prey, so the motionless group was momentarily safe. But in the next second, as the bear crept closer, Josie nearly broke down. Luckily, the badly injured Anya managed to fight back, but her aim was poor, and the bear killed her instantly. Lena and the others took the chance to break free and attack from the side, finally killing the beast. Just when they thought it was over, Ventress, for some inexplicable reason, decided to head to the lighthouse that same night. She believed their mental states were beginning to collapse, Anya being the prime example, so she wanted to reach the lighthouse before she lost control too. Lena and Josie didn't want to take unnecessary risks, so they chose to rest and wait until morning. But before dawn, Josie abandoned the idea of continuing. She suspected the bear's ability to mimic Cassie's cries meant that part of Cassie's consciousness had merged into it before death.
Imagine dying frightened and in pain and having that as the only part of you which survives.
Josie didn't want to end up the same way. Then, plant buds began sprouting from her forearms. Judging by how calmly she reacted, she must have already noticed the changes inside her. Realizing her fate was sealed, Josie seemed peaceful. Perhaps for her, this was a form of release. Without hesitation, she walked into the forest. Lena rushed to follow, but around the corner she found only a cluster of humanoid plants. One of them, the red one, could very well have been Josie. Now left completely alone, Lena broke down in tears. She didn't know what to do next, or whether she'd end up just like the others. But with no other choice, she pressed on. The scene shifts. Lena arrives at the coastline, with the lighthouse now clearly visible in the distance. The plants along the shore seem to have crystallized, likely due to infiltration by salt molecules. In front of the lighthouse lies a neat pile of human remains, but Lena pays them no attention. After a brief moment of hesitation, she pushes the door open and enters. Inside, there's a pitch-black hole in the floor, likely formed at the time of impact. A charred corpse sits on the ground, positioned in front of a video camera. Lena turns it on. At first, it shows footage of the coastline, identical to the view Lena just saw. The camera then moves into the lighthouse, accompanied by the sound of heavy breathing. Kane appears on screen. At first, a blurry, glowing sphere appeared. Then a human figure emerged from the hole, while Kane sat in a corner outside the tunnel, speaking directly to the camera.
I thought I was a man. I had a life. People called me Kane. And now I'm not so sure. If I wasn't Kane, what was I? Was I you? Were you me? My flesh moves like liquid. My mind is cut loose. I can't bear it. You ever seen a phosphorus grenade go off? Shield your eyes. If you ever get out here, you find Lena. I will.
It turns out the Kane who returned home wasn't the real Kane. The real Kane had already burned himself alive. At that moment, a low wailing sound comes from deep inside the hole. Lena cautiously peers in, but it's pitch black. She can't see anything. Summoning her courage, she steps into the void. Lena moves through a dim, narrow tunnel and finds Ventress sitting on the floor, muttering to herself, her face pale and her eyes gone. At the sound of Lena's voice, Ventress momentarily regains her normal appearance, but her mind is still drifting. Before Lena can ask anything, Ventress begins to speak on her own.
We spoke. What was it we said? That I needed to know what was inside the lighthouse. That moment's past. It's inside me now.
What's inside you?
It's not like us. I don't know what it wants. Or if it wants. But it will grow until it encompasses everything. Our bodies and our minds will be fragmented into their smallest parts until not one part remains. Annihilation.
Suddenly, golden particles pour from her mouth, floating through the cavern as her body disintegrates entirely. Those golden particles divide continuously, like cells, before merging into an unnamable mass of energy. Lena is drawn uncontrollably toward the glowing mass. It's both mesmerizing and terrifying, impossible to look away from. A longing expression creeps onto her face, and a single drop of blood seeps from the corner of her eye, floating into the center of the glow. Within seconds, the drop begins to divide, eventually forming a humanoid shape. A wave of inexplicable fear overwhelms Lena. She fires her rifle in a panic, but it's useless. She's shooting at a cluster of cells. Visible bullet trails aside, they suffer no damage. As the figure moves slowly toward her, Lena turns and runs. But when she reaches the exit, the creature is already there, blocking her path and mimicking her movements. Realizing the pattern, Lena slowly walks toward the camera, hoping to catch the creature off guard. But the creature anticipates her plan, blocks her move, and strikes back, knocking her down, then quietly lies down beside her. When Lena wakes up, she knows she can't win this fight. She gets up and dashes for the exit, but the creature presses against her body, gradually increasing the pressure until Lena can't breathe and once again passes out. They collapse to the floor together. No one knows how much time passed before Lena finally woke up from her unconscious state, and the creature was still mimicking her every move exactly, even matching her breathing rhythm. But one thing stands out. Whenever Lena moves backward, it moves forward, proving it has independent awareness. Lena discreetly retrieves a white phosphorus grenade from Kane's backpack and places it into the creature's hand. Just as she prepares to take action, she's horrified to see the creature slowly morph into her own image. Without hesitation, Lena pulls the pin and sprints away. Strangely, her duplicate doesn't chase her. Instead, it calmly remains inside, watching as Lena escapes through the front door. It walks up and gently touches Kane's remains, then ignites the lighthouse in flames. It then crawls back into the tunnel and sets it all ablaze. As the nest burns, the surrounding crystallized plants begin to wither rapidly, along with the shimmer itself, which finally starts to dissipate.
So it was alien.
As for what the shimmer really was, or whether it was carbon-based life, Lena doesn't know.
What did it want?
I don't think it wanted anything.
But it attacked you.
It mirrored me. I attacked it. I'm not sure it even knew I was there.
It came here for a reason. It was mutating our environment. It was destroying everything.
It wasn't destroying. It was changing everything. It was making something new.
Making what?
I don't know.
A team reached the lighthouse a few hours ago. Everything is ash. If what you encountered was once alive, it seems it's now dead.
She offers no answers, only quietly picks up a glass of water and takes a sip, before asking about her husband's condition. Ever since the Shimmer vanished, Kane's health has gradually improved. Lena goes to see him in the isolation room. Once the guard leaves, she asks directly, "You aren't Kane, are you?" "I don't think so. Are you Lena?" Lena nodded slightly. They embrace tightly. Kane's eyes begin to glow gold. So do Lena's. The film ends. Now comes the most debated question of all. Is the Lena who returned truly the real Lena? First, we have to acknowledge that the entire story is told through Lena's recollections and narration. And narration, by its nature, allows for deception. For example, Lena clearly didn't tell them the full truth about Kane. Otherwise, would the investigators really allow an alien replica to lie peacefully in a hospital room? So Lena's version of events must contain lies, and the reason she lied is to cover up the fact that she killed someone. To understand this, we need to look past appearances and examine Lena's nature. At the 18-minute mark, Lena recalls a past moment with Kane, triggered by grief. Back then, the couple had a conflict over faith. Kane believed everything in the world followed God's will. Lena believed that even God could make mistakes. She argued that aging isn't a natural process, but a genetic flaw in humanity. If a cell could bypass the Hayflick limit, the point where it stops dividing, it wouldn't age. It would divide endlessly, making immortality possible.
Without it, I could keep looking like this forever.
That might sound like a joke, but it's not. One of Lena's favorite books is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, whose protagonist was a woman named Henrietta Lacks. She died of cervical cancer in 1951. Dr. Gay extracted cancer cells from her tumor. These cells not only grew outside the body, but could divide indefinitely, providing endless samples for cancer research and medical experiments. Even today, they are still used in labs worldwide. To honor her contributions, these cells were named HeLa cells. This proves that cells bypassing division limits isn't fiction, and for Lena, a biologist, it was a lifelong pursuit, even the focus of her academic research. So ask yourself, when she found a soldier inside the Shimmer, clearly dead, but with cells still alive and dividing endlessly like HeLa cells, would she have been tempted to explore it further? Maybe to dissect someone and study how the Shimmer begins mutating the human body? That someone was Cassie. And next came Anya, who was the first to show visible changes. The bear? That was Lena's invented scapegoat. Why do we say it's fictional? Look closely at Kane. His arm tattoo is of a bear, and the two-story house where the group took shelter. Doesn't it look eerily like Lena's own home? Even the interior matches. A high IQ person needing to fabricate a quick, logical lie will always borrow from familiar things. So why did Lena go through so much trouble to cover their deaths? Because she was the only one who came out. From the moment Lena hid her relationship with Kane, it was clear. She wasn't just intelligent. Her years of combat experience also taught her how to anticipate and avoid risk. 4 teammates dead, and she knows nothing. Anyone would find that suspicious. Now that we understand what kind of person Lena is, let's turn to the Shimmer. The Shimmer is made up of countless prism-shaped DNA molecules that can invade animal and plant cells, refract their genetic sequences, and divide infinitely. That's why the Shimmer kept expanding, because it possesses intelligence, even if it's unfamiliar with Earth's ecosystem. To put it in sci-fi terms, when humans create unknown life forms in movies, they inevitably base them on familiar structures from Earth, because our understanding of the world in some ways limits our imagination. This concept applies to the Shimmer as well. Imagine arriving on Earth and encountering an ecosystem where everything is unknown. Naturally, it would begin to mimic Lena's every move and study the behavior of various flora and fauna in order to understand the world. But instinctively, it also knew to avoid risk, ensuring its subjects didn't break free from its control. This proves the Shimmer is intelligent. And if the Shimmer is an intelligent life form with the ability to refract DNA, then upon entering an alien world, wouldn't it naturally use that ability to try reshaping the world into something it considers suitable? Even if it had no intention to do so, it would still passively reshape the world. Based on this concept, the Shimmer's ability to divide and replicate is infinite. Once it wraps around a biological cell, it produces a new Shimmer-infused DNA cell, which then starts replicating on its own. Applied to the human body, doesn't this resemble the behavior of cancer? Only instead of gradual mutation like cancer, the Shimmer takes it straight to maximum. Earlier, we mentioned humanity's self-destruction code. Self-destruction can be active, like smoking or drinking. In the film, the dead soldier's body looks preserved from the waist down, but fractured on the upper half, with most organs still present except the lungs, which are completely gone. If you look closely at the growth spreading from his body, the branches resemble the structure of bronchial tubes and capillaries, and there are dark spots on his shoulder. This soldier most likely had a smoking addiction, and tobacco is the leading cause of cancer. So when the Shimmer entered him, it accelerated cell division, triggered lung tumors, and initiated uncontrollable replication. The abdominal incision acted as an outlet for for the Shimmer cells and exposure to the surrounding moss's DNA refracted his own, causing his entire body to fuse to the wall. At the same time, the moss outside absorbed the soldier's DNA, undergoing malignant mutation. If you fast forward the footage, you'll notice the moss moves slightly. That's the result of rapid cellular mutation and constant replication compressing against itself. This same principle applies to Anya. Cassie once told Lena why they each came into the Shimmer. Cassie had lost her daughter, and Anya was an alcoholic. Alcohol is also a known carcinogen, so Anya experienced the same kind of cellular deterioration as the soldier. Once Lena sensed that Anya was suspicious of her from both a scientific and self-preservation standpoint, Anya became the perfect experimental subject, and eliminating her was fully justifiable. Josie had a tendency to self-harm. Cutting herself created scar tissue, which is itself a result of cell proliferation. With the Shimmer accelerating this process and refracting humanoid plant DNA, Josie eventually turned into a plant. Now let's talk about passive self-destruction, emotionally driven. Take Kane and Lena, both destroyed by the affair. One gave up on life and walked willingly into death. The other was consumed with guilt and willing to go to hell and back. Every time Lena falls asleep or faints, she dreams of her memories with Kane, and even flashes of her infidelity. This shows the Shimmer can also affect the human brain and thought processes. So, why did Lena remain rational throughout, while Kane collapsed? First, Lena is a biologist, a scientist grounded in truth and pragmatism. Kane is a soldier, trained to follow orders above all else, making him more idealistic. For instance, Lena once asked Kane where his next mission would be. As it was classified, he simply told her, "When you miss me, just go outside and look at the stars. We're both in the northern hemisphere. We'll see the same sky." But Lena found that meaningless. This alone reveals their differing levels of emotional detachment. Add to that Lena's obsession with immortality. She likely lived a very healthy lifestyle, and probably so did Kane, or they wouldn't have married, because only emotionally driven self-destruction could push someone to the lighthouse. And of all those who entered, only Kane, Lena, and Ventress made it. Why didn't the Shimmer duplicate Ventress? Because when it duplicated Kane, there was already an energy mass in the cave. When Lena arrived, Ventress disintegrated and became an energy mass, suggesting that the Shimmer needs a human host's energy to initiate replication. That energy source, in Kane's case, was likely the original missing lighthouse keeper. So now that we understand the framework, why did the Shimmer want to replicate humans? Because using Earth's natural gene pool, it couldn't build a world it deemed reasonable, or one it could survive in. We saw this in how Kane's copy behaved after leaving the Shimmer. To truly adapt to Earth, it needed a host. Of all living things in the Shimmer, humans were the best choice, and it needed both a man and a woman. Otherwise, reproduction would be impossible. This theory makes Ventress's disintegration even more understandable. Lena said that when she suggested continuing forward,
You lied to them.
I didn't know what going back meant. Why it would be safer than going forward.
You didn't know, but you made the decision to continue as if you did.
Ventress made the decision.
Ventress had cancer. She was never coming back. You knew she was sick.
I guessed.
would the Shimmer really choose to replicate an unhealthy organism? Once we understand that, let's take another look at Kane and Lena. Based on the mechanism by which the Shimmer constantly expands, when Kane entered, its area should have been at least 1/3 smaller than when Lena went in. Yet Kane spent an entire year inside, while Lena was in there for just 4 months, and they both reached the same endpoint. Even if time flows differently inside and outside the Shimmer, there's no way Lena could have reached the outside faster than Kane by such a large margin. The only explanation is, they both stayed in the lighthouse far longer than a single day. Why stay that long? It was likely to complete the final stage of replication, or more precisely, a process of memory selection. When Kane first returned home, Lena asked how he made it back. Kane answered that he recognized Lena while standing outside a room with a bed inside. With this detail in mind, let's look at Kane's video. The hairstyle of Kane's double in the video was different from his real self. The slicked back hair matched the one Kane had when he left home, as seen in Lena's memory. Throughout the film, there are only 2 rooms with beds, Lena's bedroom and Kane's hospital room. Since Kane said he recognized Lena while outside the room, the hospital room can be ruled out. That leaves only Lena's bedroom. Kane said he recognized Lena from outside the bedroom. This means the replicated Kane's memories began from the moment Kane felt hopeless toward Lena. Why begin from that point? Because Kane's self-destruction was driven by emotion, and that emotion was love for Lena. If the copy inherited all of Kane's memories, then that love would have been inherited too, which would also plant the seed of self-destruction. For the Shimmer, that would be like dancing on a landmine. So in the final replication phase, the Shimmer could only use memories to recreate Kane in the moment when he was emotionally detached from Lena. No love, only despair, which eliminated the risk of self-destruction. Meanwhile, Kane himself was left with nothing but his love for Lena. After spending so much time in the Shimmer, his body had already begun to mutate, and now, with an identical version of himself standing before him, he knew there was no way he could leave. So before dying, he asked the copy to go find Lena, to take his place and stay by her side, while he chose to end his own life as a form of release. On the other hand, Lena didn't truly love Kane. At around the 68-minute mark in the movie, Lena dreams of the moment she parted ways with her colleague Daniel. Daniel once said to her,
"You spend more time away from your husband than with him. You can't talk to him about work and he won't talk to you about his. And there is a clear physical and intellectual connection between us."
Lena looked visibly disappointed, so her decision to save Kane came only from guilt. Add that to her longing for immortality and her far greater rationality than Kane, and it's clear Lena never gave up on survival. In the final replication stage, the guilt transferred to her copy. For example, when Lena picked up the grenade, even if the copy didn't know what it was, it should have tried to stop her from running away, but it didn't. When Lena handed the grenade to it, the copy transformed into Lena's image. Lena froze for a moment, then pulled the pin and fled, leaving the copy standing there, watching her walk out the lighthouse door. Throughout the film, every major event only happens when Lena sees it. Only what she sees becomes visible to us. So how could we see the events inside the lighthouse after she leaves? That means Lena didn't immediately escape. She stayed nearby watching her copy, which also proves she was certain it wouldn't retaliate. Why? Because she saw that the copy had developed emotions. In simple terms, her own self-destruction code had been transferred to her copy. That copy developed feelings for Kane. That's why it gently touched Kane's remains, as if saying goodbye. So why did the copy destroy the Shimmer's nest? Because it was a replica of Lena, containing both her mind and the Shimmer's essence. The copy knew that burning the nest was the only way to help Kane's replica survive in the outside world. This act directly reflects Lena's core motivation for self-destruction, to save Kane. At the same time, now that there was one male and one female, that was enough to reproduce a new, perfect human form. There was no longer a need for further selection. At this moment, the truth is clear. The one who came out of the Shimmer was Lena, but in another sense, she was no longer Lena. If you look closely at the glass Lena is holding, the position of her hand is reversed. Same with Kane's glass. Everything's mirrored, clearly affected by light refraction. When Kane vomited blood, it was on the right side of the frame, but there was a rainbow-colored light on the left. So Lena is the one who came out because she still understands human habits, unlike Kane, who seemed lost and unfamiliar. But why say she's not Lena? Because now only her outer appearance is Lena. Her cells belong to the Shimmer. The Shimmer rewrote her genetic flaws, gave her the ability to divide infinitely, and it took away her self-destruction code. This means Lena no longer possesses human traits. Ask yourself, how do you define who you are? Is it based on your appearance, name, personality, or habits? But if you only have the name and appearance, with no emotion or habit, how can you say you're still you? Does that mean you can only be considered a human being? And if you know you're human, are you really? After all, human is just a species label. If you truly understood what you were, maybe you wouldn't consider yourself human at all. Here's another analogy. Imagine a ship that has all its parts replaced over time, except for the outer shell. Is it still the same ship? So when Kane asked Lena, "Are you Lena?" she paused. Then she suddenly looked as if something clicked. Her face went blank. Her pupils turned gold. Doesn't this suggest they both now carry dual consciousness, part human, part Shimmer? At this point, neither Lena nor Kane may still be considered human. They've achieved immortality, but in doing so, lost their identities. As for what this alien life form plans to do next, no one knows. Maybe they'll continue planting themselves in various places, trying to reshape ecosystems into ones they find suitable. From our human perspective, this may look like destruction, but to the Shimmer, it isn't. For example, Earth is full of plants. That's because our ecosystem needs photosynthesis to produce oxygen for animals to breathe. That's why we believe plants have a purpose here. Now let's suppose the Shimmer doesn't need oxygen, or maybe it can produce oxygen on its own through some unimaginable method. In that case, wouldn't it see plants as strange entities? Or perhaps it would conclude that plants shouldn't exist at all. On that note, remember Lena once said she didn't recall eating anything inside the Shimmer, and they survived 4 months on just 2 weeks of supplies. That makes me think, once the Shimmer integrates into the cells, the way the human body gets energy might change. After all, the fundamental reason we eat is to keep our cells alive. If the shimmer can absorb energy through photosynthesis or some other process we can't understand, then naturally it can sustain life without food. The shimmer is a form of existence far beyond human comprehension, and likewise, we are difficult for it to understand. So what is the shimmer really? There's no definitive answer. You can imagine endlessly. Maybe I see the shimmer as one thing, and you see it as something completely different. There's no right or wrong, only speculation based on clues. That's why many people find the movie confusing, because there's no absolute truth. If you don't believe it, go check out some reviews or watch different breakdown videos. Almost everyone has a different take. In short, no matter how many times you watch Annihilation, you'll come away with a new interpretation of the shimmer every time. And that's exactly what makes the film so captivating. Granted, this approach isn't for everyone. Not many people are willing to invest hours or days digging into the meaning of a single movie. As for the specific clues, I've already laid them all out and included some of my own theories. Now let's watch the footage. For example, after Lena comes out of the shimmer, we can see the rattlesnake tattoo on her arm. In mathematics, it represents infinity. You've probably seen the symbol in real life. In mythology, it represents eternal cycles. The tattoo began appearing after they encountered the alligator and fully developed when Josie walked toward the coast and disappeared. But Lena never mentions this tattoo, which makes me think it might be a kind of marking from the shimmer. But here's the twist. The same tattoo appears on the soldier's corpse and on Anya, and Anya had it even before entering the shimmer. That made me start to wonder. When Anya saw the soldier being dissected, she reacted very emotionally. Could it be that she and the soldier were in a relationship? After all, rattlesnake tattoos are common couple symbols, often signifying eternal love. So maybe Lena's tattoo came from being refracted through Anya, like when Lena drew blood from her left arm. There was a hint of black in the sample. This tattoo could represent both the shimmer's properties and possibly serve as a metaphor. Lena's immortality was built upon Anya's death, or maybe the tattoo is how the shimmer marks those it selects. Once we understand the tattoo, let's revisit the bones outside the lighthouse. First, take the layout of the shimmer's nest. After passing through a dark, narrow tunnel, doesn't it resemble a womb? Both Kane's copy and Lena's copy were born from within it. Looking again at the arrangement of the skeletons, on the bottom, they form a pentagram. Above that, a row of limbs, 9 skulls and 4 torsos arranged vertically, adding up to 9 complete corpses. It looks very much like a ritual sacrifice. Based on the shape of the pelvis compared to the ribcage, they all appear to be female. So who arranged them there? Considering the known characters in Annihilation, the most likely answer is Ventress. She once said that everyone who entered the shimmer was personally recruited and evaluated by her. And in this last expedition, all 4 team members were female. A geologist, a physicist, a medic, but no biologist. The earliest to arrive was Anya, who had been at the base for 10 months. After Lena joined, the other 3 made a bet on what her profession was. Josie guessed she was a biologist, which proves they knew the team lacked one. Then Lena showed up. Wasn't that just a little too much of a coincidence? So here's my bold theory. Maybe Ventress somehow told Kane about Lena's affair, which drove him to enter the shimmer and take his own life. And through that, she roped the biologist Lena into the mission. There were always strange things about Ventress. When Lena asked if she could return home, when Lena decided to join, how did Ventress know Kane could be saved?
Soldier scientist. You can learn. You can fight. You can save him.
And that eerie smile she gave before entering. When everyone was confused about their lost memories, why did she stay so calm? She even said,
Let's pack up and get moving. We've already lost a lot of the day.
That line suggests she didn't lose her memory, and she was clearly in a rush to reach the lighthouse. These odd behaviors invite speculation. Now, for a bit of creative theory, let's assume the Shimmer and Ventress were somehow connected. One of them needed genetic material to build a cloning system, specifically a female reproductive system. The other sought a cure for terminal cancer. The Shimmer has the properties of cancer, infinite cell division without killing the host. So the two struck a bargain. Both got what they needed. Why Ventress specifically? Because she had the authority to recruit people into the Shimmer, and as someone with a terminal illness, she would have grasped at any chance to survive. As for why they lost their memories, from a biological perspective, it could be that genetic mutations affected the hippocampus, the region of the brain responsible for memory, making it impossible for memories to form properly. Or perhaps Ventress secretly did something to them. On top of that, the song lyrics that played when Kane returned, and the subtle shifts in Lena's expressions during the final conversation with Kane, I suspect there are 3 beings inside Lena. When Kane asked, "Are you Lena?" the person who hesitated was Lena. The one who looked up with sudden clarity was Ventress. The one whose eyes turned gold was the Shimmer. Ventress used Lena's body to escape her cancer and survive. Of course, all of this is my personal theory. The movie itself never explicitly confirms any of it. The part about Ventress draws from the original novel, but don't rely on the book to explain the film. The book and the movie are almost entirely unrelated. Even the director publicly stated that. So it's better to let your imagination run wild. Use the clues and signs in the film to build your own idea of what the Shimmer is, just like the Shimmer itself is trying to reshape Earth into a world it believes is rational.